Ladies and gentlemen, recently we have started talking a little bit more about our personal workouts or some specifics of athletes in our Training Tuesday. And it's always immediate. The feedback is talk about that a little bit more. We've talked about on here in the past that we shy away from that in order to not, the podcast is already about us, right? We already talk about us too much. But to not make it only about us, it's way too easy to just turn it into a mouthpiece for your own ego. And we are both people with egos that are not small. And it's like a daily fight to keep them in check. Would that be fair?
Speak for yourself.
Oh, yeah. You're a reality TV star.
Don't lead with that.
I'm a failed male model. Like this is the stuff that big egos are bred from.
A failed male model. Can you explain?
Well, I just never became a male model.
Oh, okay. You pushed it pretty hard. Nobody ever took the bait.
I didn't really go after it, but I thought if you're good looking enough, they'll come to me.
It never happened.
They didn't.
You didn't get snagged in an Abercrombie and Fitch in the mall back in the day.
You hear about it, right? Like some scout finds you in the mall or at a ball game or at a Panera. It didn't happen for me.
All right. So we're both failures.
To an extent, yeah. But point being, one of the benefits of talking more about what we're doing with some of our athletes and ourselves is that people are going through these type of workouts themselves as well. And sometimes it's for the first time and sometimes it's for the 20th time, but you're feeling things in the workout or in your training cycle and hearing other people talk about it, push things in perspective. And it's just a good learning opportunity. So I'm not saying we're just making this an ego mouthpiece, but we are going to talk a bit about workouts. And that's going to be today's episode is our recent thinkings and musings and learnings from some things we've been doing in training.
And I don't know about you, and this isn't across the board with everybody we work with or I work with. I guess I'm speaking for myself. But I generally am my own sort of experiment in the sense where I test out workouts before prescribing them. I'm guessing you do a good bit of that yourself.
Yep.
And so a lot of times, like even the session I did today, I have maybe a half a dozen to 10 athletes in mind for this exact session that I think would align with their goals.
Yeah.
And so not only are we obviously internalizing our own metrics and then what to make of it and how we felt and what we think we'll get out of it, but I don't do a session without thinking, who would benefit from this, Brakken, or I can tell this would really fit the bill for this person. And so I think it's circular. It all comes back, helps everybody.
I think so too. And it's important for people to realize the way everyone else feels when doing these things. Like we prescribe workouts for a living and we get workouts wrong, or we start them too fast, or the first time through the execution's a little off. What is a failure versus what is not, that kind of thing. So a bit more of that will occur, but today's episode is specifically, you and I have done a few workouts and had some thoughts on them. And we know that others hit those same thoughts.
Yeah. And I think it's we're second week in March and everybody's eyeballs are starting to look ahead to the first thing, right? Everybody's. And so I feel like it's not everybody, of course, different racing seasons. If you're in the South, there's a pretty big peak in the racing season in the winter, but nonetheless, it's easy to not split the hairs as much in the off season in quotes. Let's call it like December, January and February, I feel like. And then once March comes around and we see we got the first thing in April or May, it's easy for us to start getting introspective and then projecting and trying to make more sense out of it, where we've kind of had this nice grace period. I think it is throughout the off season where we don't have to microanalyze everything and we can just let it be what it's going to be. But you have a big racing season, I believe, ramping up in June and maybe a little bit before that. I'm going to start racing here. I have a race in 4 weeks from this weekend, first big one of the year. Yeah, we're starting to think about it. And you should be too. So I hope it's relevant. I just think for time of year's sake as well.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. So kick us off. You had a workout. You started to tell me about it. And then you did something that we don't do a lot, but sometimes do. And you said, actually, we could probably save it for once we press record.
Yeah, I just said save it. Well, so today's session went, I think, on paper, if you look at it.
Can I derail you already?
Sure.
Tell me, what is your race in 4 weeks for just some sort of perspective?
It's a 17-mile, quite technical trail race. with about 2,400 feet of vert in the first 13 miles and then pancake flat for 4. So it's really runs as about as big of a Midwest mountain race as you can get and then finishes flat. I've been circa day 2 hours in this. So it's a 2-hour race and I race hard.
Okay. So today's workout.
And I'm using this race as a stepping stone. I'll have Grandma's Marathon roughly like 10 weeks after that. So this will be a big effort. I'll deload pretty hard for a week and then build all the way to Grandma. So I'm using this as a tool. 2-hour race effort translates.
Grandma's is going to get here quickly.
Yes. And so I'm thinking of that as well. So anyways, today's session, you know how we set expectations in our heads for like, I should be at this pace for this session.
Yeah.
Do you do that for yourself often?
Of course.
And inevitably, and you said this to me earlier this week, you sent me your splits from a 200-meter repeat session, and your first split or two wasn't what you wanted, was it?
Mm-mm.
And it came harder than you wanted it to, didn't it?
Yep.
And what ended up happening is you did work yourself into the workout and broke free. I bet you felt better as you went, right?
For a bit. And that workout's going to be what I'm going to chat about in a bit. So we can even save those.
Okay. Well, I had this expectation in my head of what I wanted to run for today's session based on literally no logic other than that's where I should be. As in, that's where I should be if I'm going to race the marathon how I want to race the marathon. And so today's session was 12 by 1,000 meters on the track with only a 200-meter recovery. And that recovery had to be 8-minute pace or faster, roughly 8-minute pace. So what that equates to is 1,000. Sorry, 12 by, did I say 12 by 1,000? Yeah. Or did I say 1,200 meters?
So what's the workout? Or just clean it up.
12 by 1,000 meters. What did I say initially?
I don't know. I dozed off.
12 by 1,000 meters with 200 meters jog recovery. What it turned out to was 1,000 meters with basically a minute rest. But minute rest was, I was covering 200 meters in that minute rest.
Yeah.
And we got colder temps. So it's like 25 degrees today, which it's been kind of blissful. And then that moved in. But, and I don't know why in my head, I thought 5-minute pace feels reasonable to work to and stay at. This idiot on a minute of active recovery thinks I'm going to hold 5-minute pace for almost 8 miles of work with 200, right? And so I go out in the first rep, I run a 3:15 or a 3:14, which is roughly 5:15 pace. And I was like, uh-oh. I get all the way to like rep 3 or 4 and I'm like, I'm done. Screw this. I'm pulling the plug. Like I started trying to change the deal in my head. Like, you know what? You deserve 3 minutes rest after your fourth and break this up into 3 sets of 4 and da-da-da. And I was like, Kirk, what is the purpose of this workout as I'm sort of not enjoying myself and running slower than I, for some reason, thought I should.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, this isn't a speed session, Kirk. This is absolutely a durability session, but your attachment to running fast over 1,000 meters, that seems manageable. I set the workout up incorrectly to run fast. And that wasn't even my goal. But for some reason in my head, I thought I should be much faster. So I had this like slump from reps like 4 to 8 where I was like, this is dumb. I'm slow. I'm fat. I'm out of shape. I got to start taking care of myself better, whatever. I'm like, I'm just going to pull it at 8. And inevitably what happens is when you're in a heavy training pattern, somehow that internal rhetoric, I talked myself out of it and I kept moving, right? And I was consistent. In fact, I averaged roughly 3:11s for the session, 3:12s, about 5:10 to 5:12 pace. But there was a quote that I read recently or heard, and it's really resonated with me. And I don't know if I mentioned this on the podcast or to you, but it is, you don't have to feel good to run well. You don't have to feel good to run fast. You don't have to feel good to race fast. You don't have to feel good to race well. The work is the work no matter what. And it wasn't like I was having a bad day. I just wasn't meeting my expectations. And I didn't feel great. But eventually, I kind of settled in, like was like, quit throwing yourself a pity party and get this freaking workout done as you planned. And then I get done and I look at the heart rate data and I was weaving in and out and breaching threshold. And I'm like, oh my God, Kirk, no wonder you were suffering like you were. Like if you wanted to hit the pacing you really wanted, you should have given yourself 2 minutes standing rest or more on this session. Meet me where I'm at. And so we have these expectations about where we plan to be in May or June. And we're not there right now. And we're not trying to be there right now. And I like worked myself through that entire thing today in my workout. And now I got done. I'm sitting here with you. You're the first conversation I've had since it. And then you go, was that workout a success or was it not?
Right.
You understand? And
Mhm.
so do you think that's typical logic and thought process during a session?
The funny thing here is I feel like this is not I feel like. This is the type of feedback I get from an athlete who isn't totally sure on how to execute their session for the first time.
Mm-hmm.
Say I chose to run 5-minute pace, and I'd say, why? This is 12K worth of reps. 60-second rest means this is threshold or slower today.
And
So
I was
what's
faster,
5-minute pace?
way faster than threshold for me.
And you're not some athlete that
Mm-hmm.
doesn't know what they're doing. You do this for a living, and it's just important for us all to remember that we still screwed up, and we still have our ego get in the way, or our preconceived notions, like you said, the pace we can run now versus the pace we want to be able to hold later. Like eventually, 5:12 pace needs to be threshold pace for you, but 5:12 pace is 1:08 half marathon pace.
Right.
Like that's what did you run your last one in?
111.
1:11. So it's 3 minutes faster than 70-minute race pace,
Mm-hmm.
which means it's faster than your threshold pace in theory, which means, yeah, 60 seconds jog recovery, not slow jog either, is going to be brutal. And then it's an inappropriate stimulus and your workout's going to suffer. And then you have to start changing the deal in order to get the
I
work
didn't
done.
change the deal.
Right. But that's the first thought. I need more rest because, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
you need more rest. You got it done. But that's exactly how these things go. And it all starts with starting rep 1 with the wrong mission
Uh-huh. And you're
or
right.
the
How
wrong
long?
execution.
Yeah, and I think, it's easy to I've had athletes recently compare to previous workouts that they've done, like when they're in peak racing season. I don't know. Do you
Mhm.
ever get people to do the same thing? I
Oh, yeah.
assume. I'm 3 seconds slower on my 400-meter repeats than I was in July of last year. And I'd be like, well, look at the training we've been doing. Look at what we're building towards. Anyways, it's that conversation. And I did a 12 by K repeat session with 2 minutes full rest about 6 weeks ago and
Mhm.
3 minutes rest between shoe changes. And my metrics, I worked down and got under 5-minute pace towards the end. Those couldn't be different workouts, standing rest, more rest. And so I had
Mhm.
this preconceived notion, and we build this up in our heads. On paper, it almost looks the same. It was a 12 by a K about 6 weeks ago and 12 by a K today, but they are not the same session,
Right.
not even close. And so I think it's easy, like we're supposed experts, and here we are still learning. And I just think it's a fascinating subject study.
Well, and it shows that it's one thing to know it, it's another thing to execute it.
Yeah.
Like I would know the same thing for that session. We know how many times do we say on here? You understand the workout by understanding the rest interval.
Correct.
We know what 60 seconds means. It means you better chill out at first because you're going to blow up. And then our mind goes, but wouldn't it be cool to hold 5-minute pace? Like, yeah, that would be. And then we do it. Like it's as simple as that. It's one little thought gets in the way, and then the workout goes off the rails right away.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm happy with the execution. Actually, I set the wrong
Mhm.
expectation. And I think we often do that. Set the
Yeah.
wrong expectation for what we're really about to approach. I love it. Lately I've had more and more people say, what should I be approaching this workout at? Or what should my pacing be? And I'm like, oh, thank you. If I had to ask you, what would you have told me? What pace should I have approached this 12 by 1K with 200-meter run recovery? What would you have said?
I would say start at 520 and work down.
You probably would have said start at between 10K and half pace, probably,
Mhm.
right?
And cut down.
What-
Closer to half than 10K. And cut
Correct.
down if you need to. If it's there, then
Uh-huh.
you got it. But yeah, it doesn't matter. It's like a time old tradition. You screw up
Mhm.
intervals when they're new to you or when fitness seems exciting.
And well, I'm going to get to you in your session here. I don't mean to cannibalize this conversation, but you'll have your chance. It's one, the workout was completed, right? So there will be great benefit from the session regardless,
Mhm.
correct? It wasn't like a waste of time. And sometimes people I don't know, hard on themselves in that regard. Mission accomplished. Heart rate data looks great. I am happy with it. And two, if those metrics started to tank, I did not negative or positive split. I negative split still. I was able to do that. If you were in that session and it started going the wrong way pretty aggressively,
Hmm.
what do you do at that point? That is my time where I most likely either pull the plug, most likely, and just leave it as is, or
Hmm.
change the deal by saying I'm going to get to rep 8 and then maybe I'll rip some hundreds or 200s to open it up and call it my day. But I think when you bleed out, which I didn't, but if you do, there's your sign that you've severely miscalculated and we should probably live to fight another day.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree with that. And and you finishing the workout out means that, and hitting your time and cutting down means that you probably worked it harder than what the scientifically prescribed intensity would have been. And what that doesn't mean is that the workout was a waste. What it means is that it requires a little bit more recovery now after the fact. Like
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we, as athletes, get caught up in the label of the workout. And if we screw up what the label called for, it seems like a waste. And there's almost no such thing as a wasted workout. It's just has to be accommodated for after the fact. Like you might need one extra day between your next one now. And then great,
Mm-hmm.
right back on track. And then you pick up and go from there. It's not like you clicked the button and said, this will be a threshold. This will be a threshold workout. And you breached threshold and now the workout didn't count. You still got better, assuming you recover from it. And that's another piece. Sometimes athletes are really hard on themselves. Like I screwed up the workout. It was such a waste. And now I'm a week behind on training. That's not true. If you
Mm-hmm.
screw up more workouts than you don't, you could head towards trouble. But it's really hard to waste a workout. The only way to really waste it is by not recovering enough afterwards.
That's a good point, actually. Not recovering enough afterwards. That's interesting. It was a max of 184 and an average of 168. So the average is beautiful, right below threshold, right? But we
Mhm.
know I wasn't just flatlining right at 168. It was over, under, over,
Yeah.
under, over, under. I think this is and then I want you to speak on your workout. This is a demonstration of patience because I'm trying to run a 17-mile race and a marathon. In the back of my head, it's like, but I want my 5K time to be faster, right?
Hmm.
And so you make that association. And oftentimes, to build our egos, as you led with, and our confidence, as you led with, you very well could have turned that workout into 8 by 1,000 with 3 minutes rest and cranked, and then
Now
said,
you hit your time.
look at me and look at my paces, and I am right where I need to be. The fluff yourself up sessions, right?
Hmm.
But how well does that translate to, let's say, a 17-mile race or a marathon versus what I did? Not nearly as well unless you're in some peak sharpening phase. So it's like this practice of patience that you have to be like, it's okay if I'm a little behind where I want to be or should be. This is where I should be if I want to be where I want to be when I want to be there.
Hmm.
Foundation. And so rattling around in my brain, Bracken, and I know you got some of it too. So anything else? Do you have any thoughts on that before we move to you?
Well, when you had the opportunity to make a deal with yourself or modify it or do anything with it, you made one of two correct choices, which was to get the volume done,
Mm-hmm.
which is not always the correct choice.
I agree.
But with a 17 miler and a 26-mile race coming up, 8 by 1,000 faster helps you less than 12 by 1,000 not faster.
Which was my decision-making process when
Yes.
prescribing myself that session,
And
correct.
that would be how you'd screw up a workout further. It'd still be good work, but 8,000 meters of faster work will not help you the last 10K of the marathon the way 12,000 meters of more moderate work, moderate hard work is
Whoops,
going
yeah.
to. And one thing tends to lead to another. And so you set that decision in motion. And the next time, you're probably going to err on that side again and dial it in a little better. Whereas if you cut it down and run fast, then you get that dopamine hit of, I ran 5 minute pace and I snuck under at the end and Strava looked cool. You're more apt to do that again. And that's how you wind up at a marathon feeling very fast and very fit and a little unprepared for the last 10K.
It's how most marathons are gonna feel for most everybody,
Yeah.
even the greats. Yeah, okay, yeah, and so I guess no pity party. I feel good now that I'm here and I'm like, "Yeah, look
Mhm.
at the session, you ding dong, like, you did well." Maybe you swung a little harder than you should have, but, like, ultimately, I bet you I think the session, it was just about 9 miles with the recoveries in there. And I don't know how long would that have taken at I think at 5:46 average or something for the session in its entirety with the recoveries. What does that come out to, like 50 minutes or something? Something like that. Anyways, I probably spent 40 minutes of that right in that sweet spot of threshold, and I breached towards the end of each rep and came back down. So, like, if you think about it, I spent more time in threshold than not.
Yeah.
Right. And so who cares if you misfired a little bit on one side or the other? Most likely, like, metabolically, that will be beneficial. So let's move to you then, Brakken. I think this conversation you brought up mostly because you wanted to chat about musings yourself. And I'm
Yeah.
curious to hear where you're at.
Well, we were in similar boats. Mine was just one more extreme than that, but it's
Oh,
same kind of
okay.
workout. So I set out to run on the track, Kirk DeWindt, for the first time since you and I ran on the track.
Over a year then.
Over a year since I've been on a track. And that day, I probably was running, if I'm honest with myself, during there's 400-meter reps, 3K pace.
When we were together.
Yes.
What would you call your last 400-meter rep? What pace was that?
Suicide.
400-meter pace.
Yeah. I mean, it was crazy. It was like, in terms of pacing, I don't know.
That was
Somewhere
a fool's
between
errand,
400
by the
and
way.
800-meter pace.
That was a fool's errand, by the way. I
It
don't know
was.
what you were thinking.
But I was running, we started out with you running, I was running 10K pace for the buy-in and then 3K pace on the reps, which is already a fast session for what we typically train for. But
we had a tough day too. We had 20-mile-an-hour winds, and it was not a beautiful day to be on the track, if you recall.
Yeah. But even that wasn't what I would call a speed session. This was start at roughly mile pace and work down from there. Start at mile, get down to 800-meter pace, 200-meter reps fast, and then cut diagonally back across the track and pick back up. So recover,
like
slow jog back around.
What is that, like 150 meters?
Field. Yeah, there are people on the field, so I ended up going slightly around that, but I called it 150. It's like 140, 150. So 150-meter. This was not a float. This was a dawdle.
Like 2 minutes? Minute and a half?
Yeah, I'd say it was like 140 to 2 minutes. I wasn't necessarily timing it because I was just trying to move and then roll into the next one. And the plan was very open-ended because I've not done anything like this in a while. But what I have done in the past is prescribe the workout and be nowhere near it and just be very disappointed. I've done that. Even in college, I would do that when I wasn't that far removed from a season. So I decided I wasn't going to do that. So my plan was, I looked back at previous first miles that I've run after time off. And my last 2 miles that I've run in a race coming off of injury were 441 and 432. So that is between 68 seconds per 400 pace and 70.25.
It's called 70 flat.
70s. So cut those in half for 200s. And that is then between 34 and 35 seconds pace is roughly mile pace.
I have a text here with your splits on it.
I gave you my splits. So my plan was run 35 or under as long as I could until it became too difficult physically or not smart with my legs anymore. Okay. Whichever one came first. If I started feeling weird stuff in my legs, like calves or hips or anything, running on the track on the turns, after not doing that in a long time, it starts to add up on your inside hip. Calves start to feel weird. So anyway, it was just that, or this effort is getting to the point where I'm fighting for the speed. So it was just open-ended.
Well, you were wearing the Wave Rebellion Pros, so I'm surprised you're even alive today after putting up with that shoe.
Such good shoes. The 2s, not the 3s, Kirk, the 2s.
So I am sending you my 3s. I've done 2 runs in them, and they only got worse each time. That shoe, I have blisters the size of quarters on both Achilles. I had to tape my arches, and they still blistered through, and I felt like somebody was pushing back against me the way that shoe lands and hits the ground, like braking effect every stride. I was like 20 seconds a mile slower at the same effort and heart rate. I'm not joking you. It was horrible. It was like running in clown shoes. You can have them. I have your address. I'm sending them over. That's my, by the way.
You and
Mizuno,
Rad Dad Bod have the same feeling on that shoe.
Mizuno, you missed the mark with the Wave Rebellion Pro 3. Don't waste $300.
Don't listen to
Unbelievable.
them. Don't listen to them, Mizuno. They're
Anyways,
beautiful.
I'm going to send them over to you, Brakken. You can
Yes.
decide. But anyways, not to interject with my saltiness towards that shoe, but that's what you ran in, which I
Yes.
find mind-blowing.
So I have the 2, not the 3. It has a different pivot point on the shoe and different geometry to it. So I haven't touched the 3 yet, but I chose the 2 purposefully because my plan is on the track to wear spikes for the mile and on the road. I don't know what I'm going to wear yet, but it's not going to be a huge shoe, but I'm going to need to be 4-foot striking on some sort of a platform in the spike, and that's going to be stressful. This shoe demands that I do that. I can't get sloppy in the shoe. Every stride I take will be similar to the foot plant I have to use in a spike.
You can't overstride in that shoe.
Nope, you cannot overstride. You cannot heel strike. You have to run 4-foot and plant it underneath yourself, or it doesn't work. And so every stride will be useful for telling me what the stress is doing to my legs and how it's happening. So it was very intentional, but it's just way more cushion than a spike, so it's safer. So
I get it.
I set off to do the first one, and I thought I'll probably start at 34 and ease down from there. And the first one was a 35, and it felt bad. And the second one I tried to smooth out, and it was a 36. I was like, oh my goodness, already I'm running 4:48 pace.
And only for an eighth of the distance of the race, and it felt bad.
Yeah, it just didn't feel easy. And so then I just said, okay, run, forget time whatsoever. You don't get to look at the watch. So already I started changing the deal because it's an open-ended workout. And it was run what you think is a aggressively achievable pace for an entire mile in a race condition for this next rep. And so what that means is I could do this, but it would be like, it'd be a good result if I held this, but I think I could. And so I did it. And the next one was like another 36, but it felt a little bit better. And then I ran that feeling for like the next 4. And my stride loosened up a little bit. And then it went 34, 32, 32. So now I'm right back to 64-second pace. And that's a little bit faster, which is faster than mile pace now.
Couple questions for you.
Yes.
And a thought, but I'm going to wait for the thought part. Proper warm-up. Did you feel like you were properly ready to rip with dynamics, body sweat, and everything, range of motion work? Okay. No. So that could be part of it.
Yeah. So the name of everything I do right now is sustainability. So I did what I would call a quarter to a third warm-up of what I would need to do on race day. So I did a 1.25 mile jog. I did 5 minutes of dynamic movements, and I did 1-2 easy strides.
What was the temp out?
It was 49, but the sun was starting to go down. So it was very windy. Okay. So I was not sweating at any point of this thing.
Okay.
Even though I should have been at 49. I was sweating earlier in the day, just throwing with Braden, but sun was starting to go down and the wind was whipping. So I did enough warm up to be loose, but I was trying to do all the dynamic work that I haven't been doing prior to a track workout. And I could tell that I'm going to leave reps in the tank just by tiring out like my calves and Achilles and hips from doing bounding and things like that right now. So I did just like a third of what I'll need to be able to do 3 months from now. So safe and not fully warm. So that explains part of the first few reps. But as what usually happens when you're running a quicker pace, it feels bad at first, and then it makes itself more available to you as your stride just opens up and calms down a little bit.
Yeah, and the talking point I was going to bring up is, and I'm sure people are so sick of hearing about it, but it's where we're at. As like these last, I'm going to say in particular, like 3 or 4 years for me, I don't just put on my shoes and go rip 200s and have them feel good ever, even on a good day, unless I like do some pretty hard strides and I'm dripping sweat from my nose and brow, because it just takes just a hair longer to access.
Mhm.
And I think it's like a really good reminder for like race day. Like when you hit your first mile, maybe Bracken should be doing some hard 150s or 200s to break through so that
Yep.
stride is ready. And that's what I'm always reminded of when I do that short stuff. I'm like, if I ever race a mile, I gotta seriously be ready for this.
I ran a 300-meter hard prior to the last mile road race I did
Hmm.
during my warm up, just to break through that.
Yeah, and wasn't it like 90 degrees then too?
It was like 92 and it was miserable, but I made myself do it.
Yeah.
And I ran well. So then I changed the deal again. I said, okay, my stride has settled into 32 seconds. I know that's faster than mile pace. Whatever, that's fine. This is the stride that feels productive today, but I'm not fighting. Now I just run this until it either becomes too much work or I start to get slower. And then it was like 32, 32, 33, 32, 32. And during the second to last one, I wondered. And during the last one, I knew this needs to be about it. I could work for more, but I think I'm just going to do one quick one to feel what that feels like and be done. And that was the only thing I did during that workout that I'd say was not useful from a theoretical standpoint. That was the only risk of the whole workout.
That was the ego rep.
It would have been if I would get an ego boost out of that. Instead, it was, I really want to feel what it feels like to push a notch harder than this and see what like my body announces to me. Because I was sustainably running fast. It was about to be unsustainably. And then everything that's weak talks to you during that. So I just wanted to feel that for one rep. So I did one, I ran a 29 and it felt totally unsustainable, but I'm kind of glad I did it. And then the workout was done. So I did 10 by 200 with a 150 meter slow jog.
Yeah, I have your workout pulled up.
Was I close on those reps?
You did 10 reps and you didn't miss a single. You were dead on with all your splits. You didn't
Excellent.
forget. You didn't fib to the public. That's you. You're like Rain Man with your splits, and I am too. Just something when you
It's the
live
only
it and
math I
run
can
it.
do.
Yeah, I know those things. It always
Yeah.
blows my mind when I'm like, what splits did you run? And they're like, I don't know, like 740 or maybe like 810. I don't know. I'm like, you don't know. You covered that with your own 2 feet. You should know down to the 10th. Should be inherent knowledge. Anyways, I'm impressed, Bracken.
Thank you.
Good
So
job.
it was a workout that's not big. 10 by 200 is not a lot of volume, but it was by far the most intensity I've done in a long time. And it showed me some things physically that I needed to learn, but that's less of my takeaway right now. That's a personal takeaway. It was fun to feel that. But what it reminded me is that we have very little clue if we're not on top of our running and our workout progressions, what is appropriate pace wise at the start of most workouts, unless you're in a progression. So when you're coming off the off season, which a lot of people right now are coming off of base building and transitioning, the first workout should be a little open-ended, like
Or open
10 to
beginning.
12 reps
Yeah.
or run on a feeling or whatever it is. What'd you say?
Or like you said, open ended, but almost like open beginning in
Open
a
beginning.
sense,
Yeah.
if that's a thing.
Yeah. When we think open-ended, we often think the back end. I'm going to do this and then open-ended, I'm not sure, but open-ended, like think of a tube. Open-ended means both sides are open. And we forget to open the beginning. To go in a little bit unsure is okay when you're working with new stimulus. And then I had things pop up. My left hip flexor was very tight and almost sore for the rest of the day. And then it wasn't sore the next morning, but it was tight. And my glutes have been used differently than they're used to, and they are tight. So right away, I started having like discomfort in my knee because when my glutes or hamstrings get tight or lower back, it stresses my knee. And so right away, it announced all these little weak areas that haven't been used that aggressively. My feet felt a little weird, my calves, everything that was used in a different type of stride all felt worse afterwards. But running felt better. Every time I've run, whether it's on the treadmill, out to the car, chasing the kids around since, I'm a little cleaner.
Hmm.
My turnover on my next run was a little faster. I get tailed off as the run went on, but just that one session of actually running fast started me back on that process of run just a little quicker off the ground, turn over a little better. It was a really nice reminder of how little work it can actually take to start implementing those positive changes.
Yeah, there's a strong case for a minimum effective dose. Not that that's what this was, but like in your
Yeah.
specific position, you're in like a really unique spot, I feel like, because you had a shitstorm like 3 years, we'll call it. Is that fair? 3 years?
Mm-hmm.
Where in and out of surgeries, you hadn't trained like you'd been very consistent with training for years prior to that, right? Without any major
Yeah.
setbacks. And not only that, but you're also at like that annoying period of time in your life too, where like Father Time eventually knocks on the door. It's one thing to deal with this at 25 than it is at 35, now 37. You'll be 37, right? Or you'll be 38.
I'm 37. I'll turn
You'll
38 in May.
turn 38. And 38 sounds a heck of a lot older than 37. I'm gonna be honest with you. It just does.
You're practically 40 at that point.
Correct. And so you're in this unique position of like years off of taking impact like you wanted, coming back, detrained from both like being able to take damage and just the cardiac output, right? Portion of the whole thing. And now like you're sort of having to like really relearn from like both ends. Now I have a body that's almost 38 as well on top of coming back. And so like stuff popping up, although it could be demoralizing, is like, yeah, that's probably going to be a theme for a while here, I would imagine.
I feel like a veteran newbie. I've done this all before. This all feels very familiar, but a lot of this is getting the type of reaction from my body of someone who's doing it for the first time. It's a very interesting place to be in. So the cool thing is the speed, like the stride and everything, remembered what to do. But it certainly didn't, like the 29 at the end. I know I'll never be like I was in college, but we used to run 200 on, 200 jog. And you had to break 30 for as long as possible. And the gold standard was get to 20 reps. I ran one and it was a fight. So like there's just it was still there, but it's not the same. And I know like that was 20 years ago almost. Right. But it's weird to feel like this is my wheelhouse. This is what I know. And it's totally new and foreign to me. But walking around the next 2 days afterwards, it was just like a shopping list. My body was announcing of places I need to address in the weight room and in my warm-ups with drills. It's very nice to feel. It'd be nice if everyone could feel this periodically and just to be reminded, here are your very obvious weak points, and they're very easy to fix.
No, what's fun is that you're ripping 200s in early March. That's fun.
That is fun.
That's fun. It's not a position a lot of people are in right now.
The fact that our track's even clear is awesome.
Yeah, we got snow and it melted away a couple days ago, so I was back on that baby. So I know in one of the previous episodes you were talking about combining like mile training with ultra training, which is interesting, I guess would be a way to put it. And so then I say, or my thought process then goes, okay, so like if you are working at or faster than mile pace to get accustomed, the thing that people don't understand that run shorter distances, like the mile, because most of you listening don't race a mile, maybe occasional mile time trial. A lot of you probably rarely lace up for a 5K anymore, to be honest. Seems like more people tend to chase the longer stuff. But point being is running 29 is honestly a waste of time, other than the fact like this is what working hard and feeling the buildup of lactate and just the true like fatigue feeling, like we want to get familiar with it so it serves a purpose that way.
Yeah.
But where it doesn't serve any purpose is like all of this is for naught if you can't run 33s and be relaxed doing it.
Yeah.
And people think like running fast means they're there or they're ready or they're capable. And what you're describing is running 20 reps at 29 seconds in college and doing it within yourself.
Yeah, that was the difference, right?
So we're like, you're not carrying your shoulders high and you're not stressed in your neck and your shoulder muscles aren't popping out because you're reaching with your arm pump. It's like, no, I'm running 33s and I'm doing it asleep.
Yep.
And like, there's such a difference there. Like, I don't care if you can run a 29. And I ran 29s last week to finish. And guess what? I did the same thing you did. It just doesn't serve me.
Nope.
But anyways, and so I just think that's like just important for people to hear would be like, it's all for nothing if you can't do it well within yourself.
Yeah.
And so the point being is saying that you were saying that rep did you nothing, or like that wasn't a useful rep in the sense of that did not teach you to run fast while being relaxed.
No, it was utterly useless. I mean,
But
it's not, but
the feeling isn't useless that accumulated in your body.
correct. But I'd rather do 3 more regular reps than that
Mm.
one. And moving forward, I don't need to do that one again. It'll be probably 2 or 3 weeks before I check in on what ripping one would feel like again. But it just there's nothing that reminds you how inefficient running can be, like trying to run fast and relaxed. We forget how skilled running fast needs to be if you want to sustain it for longer than like 30 seconds. And so that relaxation only comes with reps. So I still don't plan on dosing it any more frequently, once per week. But it reminded me that I need to get my adding in strides before or after runs more frequently.
Mm.
That can be a way it needs to happen more.
So what about the other end of the spear? As far as like, okay, so we get turnover work in, and I'm thinking
Yep.
about this with myself now too. Especially with like still like the mistress of the 5K, like lingering, even though I have these longer race goals
Yep.
currently. Is in like, okay, so I'm thinking, how do I build a marathon engine but keep the 5K available to me? And you're thinking, how do I build for the mile and keep the ultra available to me?
Yeah.
So we're almost looking at it in opposite lenses, the way our seasons lay out.
Yeah.
And so my
My ultra
question,
comes later, the
right,
miles now. Your 5K comes later, the marathons now.
right. And so I distracted myself earlier, and this is the question I meant to ask before I went on my high horse about fighting for speed is what's the other side of that look like then right now?
Well, I got the instant lesson of balance because what I had been doing were those minimum effective doses. I got up to 8 by 140 and then I went to 10 by 200. And that's like a seismic shift in my world.
Yeah, it's over time and a half.
Yeah. So I couldn't do my long run the next day. I could have done it, but I didn't. It didn't feel like it would be smart or useful. And our trails are so wet and muddy right now that the trail wasn't an option. I didn't even go out on the trail to cool down after my mile. I did it on the infield around the track because on my warm up, the trails were just like, I was just going to destroy things.
Mm.
So it would have to be on the pavement or it would have to be on the treadmill. And the way my hip was feeling it, I didn't want to run a monotonous stride. So I didn't do a long run. So it showed me I can't, early on when the stimulus is new and impactful on me, I can't overstep by a rep or two because it's going to cost me the ultra side of this each
Mm.
week.
Could you have bumped that quality session forward a day to give yourself a day of reprieve in between, or will you adapt and be able to do this in 3 weeks from now because it's just system shock?
I think if this week I went out and did 8 or 9, I could do the long run the next day. But there was that first system and the 29 at the end cost me. And the bouncing up and down and doing plyometrics and stuff, that all was just a little bit much. I was feeling things that aren't things yet, and I didn't want to go spend a long run making them something. So I'm, again, erring on the side of caution. It bumped everything this week back a day. Supposed to have threshold intervals today. Today's going to be easy run. Tomorrow will be the threshold intervals. And then hopefully I'm back by Friday for another little dose of mile, and then Saturday get a long run in this time. If
So
I
let's
have to
turn,
bump it to Sunday, I bump it to Sunday.
which is nice with the fluid schedule,
Yeah.
with no races immediately on the calendar either.
The
'Cause that
benefit of
changes
doing
things.
2 quality a week. You
Yeah.
can play around with days.
So let's turn these into teachable moments or teachings
Yeah.
moving forward. Okay, let's take your situation, and then let's take my situation. So how does this change or influence how you look to the next 4 to 6 weeks?
I don't think it changes much about my next 4 to 6 weeks in terms of what the plan was, but I will add some things actually, which is more mini doses of plyometrics and strides throughout the week. Once a week is not enough for that. Twice with full sessions is too much. for me right now. It probably wouldn't be, but I wouldn't be able to run the volume in long runs I want to run. But one full session per week in a couple little small doses across the week is going to be just fine. So I need more of that. It showed me how much of the prep skill work needs to be laid down to be able to just absorb high intensity running with no cost.
So your mind first goes to the piddly stuff, we will call it.
Yeah, for what I'm adding or changing is piddly. That's it.
Does it change how emotionally you look at things coming up?
Got me very much more fired up about everything.
Okay, how so?
It confirms what I already knew and I talked about recently, which is I just like running faster. That is a fun stride to use. It's fun to do. And being out on the track, you get the track's intimidating. And then you get that out of the way and you think, okay, I could run a race on the track. So I got home and started looking at what that week really looks like of track week and can I absolutely make it work rather than, yeah, I'd like to do that now. It's like, no, let's do this thing. I'm excited.
It invigorated you.
Yeah, very much so. Yeah, I could feel momentum built in one session.
But no change. Like, you know what? I'm going to add some 150s on the end of everything now to access, or I'm going to
just play, just slow. Because one of the pleasant takeaways was I'm not like it felt a little foreign, but I haven't lost that much.
Isn't it scary though to think you need to hold those 34s at minimum times 8? That's a scary prospect. I was thinking that myself during my thousands, being like, if I'm running 510 to 515,
you can't afford to even think it, right?
Scary. Yeah. Because it's not a race.
And that's exactly the thing, right? Any one of those 34s, if I held it for another half lap and made it a 68, would have been the end of the day. And yet last year in July, I did that for 4 straight 68s. Or maybe it wasn't maybe it was 10 months. I don't know what it was, but I ran that 432. I did it. But the concept of doing it right now is impossible. So you almost can't think about chaining those things together during base building. It's too overwhelming.
But it's easy to go there. Of course, your mind's going to at least wander there briefly. Wow, 30. Go ahead.
I was talking to Macaulay after, and he said, what did that 29 feel like? And I said, like, I'll never break 2 in an 800 ever again.
That's the exact thing I thought when I finished with 200s last week.
And yet, last December, I ran one indoor 800 and ran 202.
Mm-hmm.
Something like that. 201.5, 202. And I got done with that and thought, yeah, you give me 6 weeks, I'll break 2. But the thought of doing it after only doing 200s is impossible. No way will I ever break 2 again. So we almost can't think, you can't extrapolate during transitional phase because it's depressing. That workout showed me I will never run 430 in a mile or 2 flat in an 800 ever. It's impossible.
But right, but you're being facetious by
if
saying
that workout was all you knew. But because we've done the track thing before where you come out each spring and run this and then 8 weeks later you're running way faster, we know how that works. But if that's all I knew, if that was my first time running track intervals coming off a base phase, I would think I have greatly overestimated what I can run in a race.
All right, so full steam ahead.
Yeah, moderate steam ahead.
There's always like a 2-week window after you add in new stimulus that your body takes a hit from. I feel like you get a week removed from those 200s and think like, yeah, I should be recovered and feel good. And I can go hit something like that again and it should feel better already. And I find it's about a full 2 weeks before it's like available to you again and potentially better. But it takes long. That cycle's like, no, I didn't just rip the best 400s of my life on Wednesday and now I'm going to race out of my mind on Saturday because I'm better now. Like, oh, you're actually a little compromised for a period of time before you can get there and then beyond again. So it's always like one of those things where like progression is great and weekly progression in sessions is great, but like our body doesn't always work that way, especially if we reach for those interval splits and pacing. Like you can't just progress to perpetuity.
Yeah.
It doesn't work that way.
Second Quick takeaway is that every single person's stride can benefit from little bits of quick work. It just cleans you up. So PSA, do it. But then the final takeaway is that not all volume is made equal. I did 2,000 meters of work plus some dynamic work, and it was different, but every bit as destructive on my body as the last 2-hour long run I did in
And it
terms
was a
of the recovery demands.
mile and a quarter.
Mile and a quarter, plus some hopping around. Took me as much recovery as the 2-hour trail run did. No stimulus, especially intensity, does not mean that you can just match your previous volume. If I had been a volume connoisseur, I'll use a nice word for it, and I needed to get my 9 miles in because I'm doing my 9 miles, those 9 miles would have been worth like 16.
Doesn't look good on your Strava.
No, you have to modulate volume when intensity changes. So those are the ends of my takeaways for
those are good takeaways. I mean, I'm taking away that you're excited, encouraged, slightly more inspired, and you have more intel now. You have more information.
Yeah.
All right. Mine is, I'm actually trying to figure that out because let's call it, I think 5'11" or 12 average. Granted, it was almost 8 miles of work of the quality portion. So there's that, but thinking about running 25 seconds per mile faster for a 5K feels like a joke. It feels like a joke. Like that's like, you're so on another planet right now. What would happen if I made this 5 by a K with 3 minutes rest? Maybe we'd have a different conversation, but nonetheless, what I'm trying to do is this actually makes me a little more conflicted, as in, do you stay the course with like doubling down on stay power? And some would say 12 by a K at that pace is very sexy work, but it really didn't feel like it. And it was not sexy at all as far as building up output ability, right? It was for short duration. And so I think what I need to do is relax. 5:12 pace for that amount of work is going to make marathon pace feel very, very, very comfortable. And I need to just, I think my takeaway is like, Kirk, you know how this works. Yes, you can touch 5K pace on occasion, maybe every 3 weeks, maybe right now. A lot of 10K pace, as we've discussed, but like, just know like that time will come, and don't start filtering that in more right now because you need it to feel good about where you're at. Your best race will come from the process that you are currently on. Mm-hmm. And so I think knowing that I'm behind on the 5K efficiency is starting to like push me towards like allowing myself to run faster more often with more rest. But how well does that translate to a 2.5 hour race? Not nearly as well as what I'm currently doing. And so I think all of that to say, I think I need to continue down my path and just know and trust that foundation will be there when it's time to run faster. And if it's not, so be it. But right now you have to focus on mission 1. And mission 1 is not the 5K. And so I have to let that go and try to a little bit for now.
I had a message back and forth with an athlete I'm working with who is preparing for their first 100 miler in the mountains. And he said something this weekend along the lines of, and I know my MO, if I do this Friday, I'm just going to end up not getting my long run in Saturday. And all I replied back is, there's a big, scary mountain waiting. 100 miles have to be covered there. And she said, fair enough. And I think that's the same thing for you. You have a big, scary marathon waiting. Whether you chase 5K or not, that marathon is going to demand the same answers from you on race day. And if you had to come up short one way or the other, you'd want to come up a little short on being ready for a 5K after the marathon than being ready for a marathon prior to the 5K.
Yeah.
You can't have the marathon come up short, because you can always get faster afterwards, but there's not a thing you can do last minute to prep for a marathon.
Yeah. Yeah. That's,
and you know that.
Exactly internal rhetoric. It's exactly it.
Yeah. But like you said, looking at this and extrapolating out, it's an impossibility at this point. It's so depressing. You think I have to change. But it's one of those only way out is through kind of things.
Yep. Yeah. I think that about sums it up. I think that's really, our takeaways aren't very profound. I think we're both in privileged positions, and I'm in a privileged position. We are to the granular level of hair splitting. I understand I'm speaking from my golden throne because of my ability to run at my age, and it almost might seem silly to some of you and trivial to talk about this in this way, but it's the only way to discuss and split hairs and talk about this.
Yep.
No matter if you're a 30-minute 5K or a 15-minute 5K, like if you know we just talked to Matt Fitzgerald about the form of mastery, and I am in it. I am in my mastery phase of my own training, and some of you listening are too. And I think you're going to have to get back to that just because of the last few years. You're in your new phase of mastery. When you're in that mastery phase, everything goes under a microscope. Everything. At least that's how I feel about it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So I will close with our weekly reminder now that we're talking times again, that pace and time is just the currency of a runner. And you don't put stock in anyone else's times. You may feel fast compared to us. You may feel offended that we're talking about times as in feeling easy or quick, and they're astronomically faster than what you can run. But it doesn't matter. We're just talking in the currency of runners. And Kirk and I are both so painfully aware that there are so many levels above us. The times we say are laughed at by others, and they are mocked by others. It's just, we as a community have to be able to just talk about times and attach no self-worth to it. So if our time talk in this episode offended you, I'm sorry, but it says as much about any of us as it does anyone else. It's where we are in our journey, and we have to just accept it.
And I think more than anything, folks, we love you, and we're fighting the same fight you guys are. We're out here putting our shoes on and pounding it, just as we hope you are probably well listening to this podcast. So we're all on the same team.
Yeah.
I think that's the point.
It's all relative.
Thanks for cleaning that up, Brakken. I think we got to roll.
See you.
Bye.